Welcome to Road to Recovery.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents with Sagi Shaked. Sagi is a founder of Shaked Law Personal Injury Lawyers and is ranked one of the top 100 trial lawyers in the United States by the American Trial Lawyers Association. With a wealth of experience in personal injury, wrongful death, and complex litigation cases, he passionately advocates for victims and has recovered multi-million-dollar settlements for his clients. I'm Sean O'Connor, and today we're talking about surgery after a truck accident. Sagi will explain what it means medically, what it means legally, and how these decisions impact the entire claim from start to finish. Interesting stuff. Sagi, good to see you.
Good seeing you again, Sean.
Let's get right into it. When someone learns they need surgery, they may need surgery after a truck crash. What does that usually indicate about the severity of their underlying injury?
So when someone has surgery or needs surgery, it means that it's no longer a simple or a little strain or sprain or just some soreness that would have gone away. It means it's typically there's some sort of structural damage in their spine if we're talking about a spinal injury. The disc is being compressed or compressing a nerve, spinal instability, stenosis, or the symptoms aren't improving and they've tried all this conservative treatment and it's not working. And surgery is usually that last resort. You've tried it all and it's just not working. Your pain is not getting any better, your weakness or your numbness, whatever symptom that you're having, and you can't live like that and you don't want to live like that. And so surgery is the last resort and it's done. And so that's kind of what surgery is in these cases.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even in, just in everyday life, I think, surgery is like people do typically try to avoid it, surgeries like fusions and laminectomies. I mean, it sounds intimidating, right? How do you break down the purpose of each in plain language so people you're working with understand what they're facing?
Yeah, and I'll explain them. So we'll start off with, you said fusion first. So a
Mm-hmm.
fusion is when the surgeon, because you need a surgeon to do a fusion, stabilizes the spine by joining the two vertebrae. So remember we had the vertebrae on top, vertebrae on the bottom, and then that cushion in the middle is that disc. So basically the surgeon's going to fuse those two bones together. And that should avoid that disc irritating the nerve. Now you're going to have some mobility issues when you have a fusion. So the fusion is when they're locking those bones together, in a simple terms. The next thing I think you spoke about was a laminectomy.
Mm-hmm.
And all that is you're making more space. So again, we have the bones again, right? The vertebrae.
Mm-hmm.
And the surgeon removes part of the bone that's pressing on the nerve. So you give the nerve more room again. And that's often you see that when there's what they call stenosis or nerve compression. And then sometimes you'll hear something called a discectomy. So a discectomy is that when they're removing a portion of the disc that's pressing on the nerves. So when you're doing a fusion, you want to stabilize, right? When you're doing a laminectomy, you're decompression. So it's usually a laminectomy and a decompression, which means you're decompressing, you're taking off some of that lamina, some of that bone. And when you're doing a discectomy, you're removing a portion of the disc material that's hitting the nerve. So if we would show an exhibit, you would see the disc pushing on the nerve. And if you remove that portion of the disc, the nerve can now breathe normally. There's no one putting pressure on that nerve.
I think in many cases, doctors, they try injections, therapy, or pain management before ever recommending surgery, right? With sort of a progression. Why is that treatment path important in both, in recovery, but also for the legal process?
Right. And it's really important because you don't want to just jump to surgery. Nobody wants to jump to surgery right away. And look, sometimes you need surgery and then none of those things are going to help. So there are situations, I'm not a doctor, I just been doing this for a long time and been dealing with a lot of these issues. But the general pathway is let's start off with some anti-inflammatories. Let's start off with some therapy, see how that works. And if the therapy doesn't work, then you do the MRIs, you find out what the problem is. the guidepost we talked about, and then they'll try injections, like a targeted injection to, if you're having a certain disc that's causing radiating pain, maybe we'll give you an injection and it'll make you feel better. Problem I find with injections is that it's just like a Band-Aid, basically. It gives you some relief, but it's not a fix. So eventually you don't want to always just do injection after injection after injection. You want to fix the problem, as opposed to, think about a tire. Tire goes low on air, you keep filling it up with air, but until you fix the problem with the tire, meaning that nail that continues to cause the air to release, you're going to continue to have to stop at gas stations all the time, or wherever it is that you're putting up air. So it's therapy, anti-inflammatories, injection, and then surgery. That's the general pathway we see.
Got it. And so you followed that path, you get to the point where you've decided to undergo surgery. How does that affect the way the insurance company now evaluates the case, especially in high impact trucking collisions, which I know is one of your specialties?
Yeah, so surgery will raise the value of the case tremendously. One, you're going to have higher medical bills. You're going to have a recovery time. There's more pain involved. There's risk in going to surgery. Anytime you undergo anesthesia, there's risk. There's the recovery time, and there's potential impairment. I mean, sometimes surgeries go well. A lot of times they do, but a lot of times they don't. And what if they don't go well? So the defense has to eat all that, and they're going to have to pay for all that. So it does definitely increase the value of the claim. It's an increase in exposure to the trucking company and the insurance company, whether it's a car or a truck. And whenever you have a surgical case, they're going to dig harder. They're going to look harder. They're going to want to see, do you have any pre-existing conditions? Is this really related to the crash? And that's where the person's going to want to go to the doctor right away if they're hurt. But whatever you call it, surgery does make a difference on the case. And someone who's fine just doesn't go in for a back or neck procedure. I mean, who does that just to go in and get cut? That's a very crazy thing to do, but it does increase the value of the case, but it'll increase the fight on behalf of the insurance company.
Can you walk us through a case where surgery became the turning point, either in proving that the injury or in establishing the long-term impact on the client's life?
You see it happening a lot. I mean, a lot of times you have that radiating pain, and the doctors don't guarantee anything happening, but the surgery can definitely help the patient if they get it. Again, I'm not a doctor, but if the doctor's thinking they can do something for the patient, let's just talk about the radiating pain, and it eliminates the radiating pain, and they don't have to have that radiation or that numbness anymore. That can really help them moving forward. Now, at the same time, it also helps the value of the case, because now we have some objective sign of injury, because the doctor's going to go in there and talk about a structural change or the type of changes they made to this human being. So it can take away the pain that the person has, from, instead of having lifelong pain or lifelong radiation, that's gone. So if you have, for example, radiating pain going down the back of your leg or the side of your leg, that can lead to, the name is escaping me right now what the condition is called, but it could lead to permanent loss of function in that leg, where you'll start limping around instead of walking normally, because you didn't address the radiating pain going down your leg.
So someone's in that situation, let's say, what should people know about documenting their symptoms, treatment decisions and recovery periods, so the full picture of the injury is preserved? It sounds almost like an evidence chain, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you really want to mark these major milestones. When you finished your therapy, what your pain levels were at PT sessions, what specialists you went to. Obviously, the lawyer has to gather all those records. If you've had surgery, you really should know what kind of surgery you've had. Keep track of the rehab. If you're taking a lot of medications, I would keep those bottles, because that's a good visual to show, hey, it's not that I just took medicine. I have a bag full of medicine. And we all know medicines, nothing good happens from them. Yes, they give you pain relief, or yes, they give you anti-inflammatory relief, but it also has a negative effect on the body too. So there's always something a ramification for taking medicines. So I would make sure you communicate to your provider where you're having the pain, what causes, where the pain travels, if you're having sleep disruption, if you're having headaches, how long you're having a problem walking for or sitting, or you can't lift something. All those things, if they can make it into the record, even better.
What about post-surgery limitations or permanent restrictions? Like how do they factor into calculating long-term damages and future needs? Sounds like there's some crystal balling going on there.
Yeah, so we do have to act like a forensic and look into the future, right? And it helps when you have some years of experience, or like myself with 26 years of experience in 2026. It helps, so what you've seen these people go through a bunch of different things. So it depends on the surgery. Some surgery, people can't work for a couple of months afterwards, so that impacts them financially. Some people have their quality of life affected. Yes, while the nerve pain is gone, they can't close their hand anymore, or they don't have any strength to pick up stuff anymore. So that impacts the way they move about in their business. Maybe some people can't do physical labor anymore when they used to do physical labor, and that's all they know how to do. Some people are not meant to go to school. Some people don't want to go to school, and school's not for them. And then some people are, they love school. So everybody gets impacted differently, depending on the type of surgery that they're having. And that could, again, impact them financially from a work-related standpoint, and also from a quality of life standpoint. So just because you have a successful surgery doesn't mean you're going back to 100%. And I don't think anyone goes back to 100%, because once there's been a structural change in your body.
My guess is the short answer to this question is money. But I'm curious, why do insurance companies often challenge whether the surgery was necessary, right? And how do you address those disputes? Because I'm sure they come up. You already touched on it, right? Like, oh, was that really ever, you were just having surgery for fun?
So yeah, you guessed 100% correctly. It's all about the money, especially with the insurance companies. And you'll see the same common defenses all the time. It's degeneration. It's pre-existing. It was too aggressive. They went in for surgery right away. The guy couldn't deal with the pain, so he wanted to get rid of it. He doesn't want injection after injection after injection, because that's medicine too. There were other options, or the crash didn't cause it, right? It's always anything but the crash. Some Martian came from outer space and zapped them, and that's why they needed the surgery. So really, how do you deal with that, with these defenses that they continuously bring up? Really show what your client went through. Don't just talk about the condition. The condition is the herniated disc, right? But that's a way to lose these cases. Talk about the objective evidence. Talk about the signs and the symptoms that the person has, the consistent symptoms over time, the documented symptoms, how they failed conservative care. They went to the specialist, and they're not doctors. They go to the specialists who are doctors, and the doctors told them, this is your only option. You've tried the conservative care. Now you've done surgery. There's nothing else they can do unless you want to learn to live with this pain or this inconvenience that you have the rest of your life. So it's a timeline. Having credibility and good medical reasoning can make your case a lot different and easier to challenge the insurance company.
Someone now is in a situation where they're still weighing their options, right? They're kind of maybe at a crossroads. And so, should I get surgery? Should I not? What guidance do you give about making medical decisions that, well, also protects the integrity of their claim, right? That you want to avoid that gap in care and all those sorts of things. What strategies do you advise people take when they're at that crossroads?
It's a great question. And I always tell clients, this is your health. Take care of your health. Your health is your number one thing. And what you're not going to do is, you're not going to do a procedure, a surgery, injection, or go to treatment for a claim. I don't want those claims. I don't handle those claims. If you're hurt, you're going to go to the doctor. But never do a procedure because you want more money. That's the worst thing, because procedures have risks. The last thing you want to do is risk your life for some money. It's just not worth it. So I would say, make sure you go to good doctors, right? And then if you're having the complaints and the complaints add up, then you really, if you have no choice and you feel that you can't live like that, then do the procedure. If you can, I would get a second opinion too. It doesn't hurt to have a second opinion. So don't skip your doctor's appointments from a legal standpoint. Don't skip your doctor's appointments. Don't delay going to the doctor. Follow the doctor's plan and communicate honestly about what's going on with your symptoms and functions to the doctors, so they can make those reasonable medical decisions for you and for your future. So in a nutshell, what I would say is whatever's good for your health, that's what you should do. Take care of your health. This isn't about a case. This is about your health, because after all, the case is going to settle or resolve, but you've got to live with this stuff the rest of your life. So if you decide to live with the pain the rest of your life, that's the decision you made. If you decide to fix it, then that's the decision you made. But ultimately, it's all about the person's health and getting better.
That sounds like good advice. And also, like, you're in that space where the injury is just over, all consuming, I'm guessing. And so it's hard to have that level head. So that's why you need good people. And Sagi, we're out of time. So great chat. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And that's it for today's episode of Road to Recovery, Advocacy and Insights for Trucking Accidents. And if you'd like to learn more about Sagi Shaked and his work at Shaked Personal Injury Lawyers, visit the website, shakedlaw.com. You'll find resources to help you understand your rights after a serious accident and what it takes to protect your future. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review if you found this episode helpful. I'm Sean O'Connor. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.